Welcome to NFL Daily, where we're so smart we launched a new show in a completely dead week with no NFL news. Also smart enough to ask my friend Mina Kimes to join me today. Mina, of course, of NFL Live and the Mina Kimes Show featuring Lenny and Around the Horn. And somehow I swear Pablo Torre finds out like daily, which is really great. I enjoyed that. It's Mina Kimes. Welcome.
I think the biggest NFL news of the week is the launch of NFL Daily, at least in my world. So excited for this new venture for you. Obviously, sad about the end of Around the NFL. Amazing podcast. I was so excited every time I got to go on, especially kind of earlier, you know, when I wasn't doing as many podcasts, I didn't have my own. But Greg, just for people who are listening, not only do I count you as a real life friend who I can talk to about family stuff, books, life, whatever, I think of you as someone whose opinion on football I not only, you know, value and enjoy listening to, but I'm actually nervous sometimes about presenting my opinions because if you disagree with them, I worry that I'm wrong. So, and then when you do agree, I am delighted. So I'm excited to hear what you do in this space.
You're too nice. I appreciate it. And yeah, I appreciate you saying that because I know I've heard you on podcasts say you don't like at the top of the show what the Brits would call faff, you know, like for 5 minutes, and we're doing that. So for you to say that, it shows you really mean it. And yeah, we are friends. Like we once attended a pavement show together. There is no higher form of friendship than that. So I'm really excited to have you for the first week before you get ultra busy, although I know you're already busy now. And we're gonna do a loose camp preview, kind of look ahead to the season, just a way to hit every AFC team today. I just want to start getting takes out there, get to all the fan bases. We'll hit the NFC tomorrow with your friend Bill Barnwell, and we'll pick what's the most intriguing storyline we're looking forward to for each team. So we'll split it up by divisions. I'll do the AFC East. I'll just get us going. No more faff. And I'll start with Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills, because Josh Allen is my most intriguing storyline. And by that, I just kind of mean what Josh Allen we see this year, because I think we have this tendency with great quarterbacks that like, okay, he's great. Now he just stays there. Like Josh Allen's great. That's an accepted thing we know about him. And I do expect him to stay great, but he's the type of quarterback to me that's going to have different versions of great. And he's streaky even within seasons, within games. He talked this week actually about really changing his throwing mechanics. And I've thought about like, how does Joe Brady wind up making him better? And we know how the offense changed last year during the season. And now you look what they added, and it's Keon Coleman, but it's a lot of yak guys, a lot of guys over the middle. Yeah. 2 tight end sets, I think, quite a bit, which I think will be fun. It's the running game. And like, how does Josh Allen's development fit into all this? And especially as like a fan of his running at 28 years old, how does Joe Brady work in his, you know, amazing skills as a runner? So just his development, because he's not going to stay the same. Some guys stay the same, like Drew Brees was always kind of the same. But most quarterbacks, even like an Aaron Rodgers, very different at different points of his career. So what kind of Josh Allen are we going to see this year?
I think a good one. I think he'll be fine. Obviously, it's not a bold take to say Josh Allen will be good, but part of the reason why
I think style, you know? Yeah,
well, that's kind of why I'm confident in him, and I think how he'll play this year, because the offense you're describing, and that to me is going to be one of the more fascinating things about the Bills generally, is the transformation of this offense, which kind of started in the second half of last season, obviously, when they switched coordinators. But now with Diggs gone altogether and both tight ends healthy, I think we will see the next version of this. What it calls for, hypothetically, is, you know, a little bit more surgical quarterback play. You talked about this, you know, Josh Allen setting up his receivers to get yards after the catch, working over the middle of the field, being patient. And Greg, part of the reason I'm confident is we've seen Josh Allen do that. Like, we have seen him. I think there's this misconception out there that he's only good when he's just, you know, bombs away, gunslinger. And yes, he definitely has a gunslinger mentality, and it has certainly bitten him at times. But I can think of many games over the last 3 years where Allen's average depth of target has been sub 7, and he's been deadly accurate, super smart, and super careful. I think the question is kind of, okay, well, is that a consistency thing? Will he get impatient? Will he press? And that's certainly plausible. But when I think about this offense and what I expect it to look like with the new skill players and coordinator and whatnot, it's not hard for me to imagine Josh Allen executing it well.
No. And it's just the details. And it changed so much last year. It was effective before they made the offensive coordinator change in its own way and effective afterwards. But yeah, his average depth of target went way down when Joe Brady. So I thought it was interesting hearing him this week, talk about the mechanics and stuff. And it's just a reminder to me, like, I expect him to be in the Hall of Fame someday, but I also just like to see how these guys change throughout his career. And I don't want to totally lose the prime Cam Newton running style. All right, let's go Patriots. When we first talked about this, we thought about just camp storylines, and this one is a camp storyline. It's just how the receivers shake out. I know you had Taylor Kynes, right, on your AFC East podcast, which was really good. People should check that out. And I was curious what he would say to your receiver question. He thought Demario Douglas was maybe the guy to watch. To me, I'm thinking about what's the starting group? Who's going to get the most snaps? I would guess it was KJ Osborne, Jalen Polk, and Demario Douglas. Maybe not in that order. But yeah, why you're making a face?
I thought your sentence was going to stop at KJ Osborne.
No, but just that's your top three. They have 17 guys. They have Juju there. They have Kendrick Bourne coming off at ACL.
He's very good.
They still have Tyquan Thornton, who I don't know if he makes the team, but they just have a lot of guys, and I'm curious how it shakes out.
They have a lot of receivers who, if any of them were on the San Francisco 49ers, would be the guy who doesn't do much, but then on third down in a key moment makes a great play, and everybody's like, wow, Demario Douglas, what the wild card for this Niners team, right? But on a Patriots team where that's it, it's kind of a tough build because there isn't really a true number one. And I say that as someone who really likes Jalen Polk, loved watching him at Washington, which is the college team I root for. I think his skill set aligns really well with Drake May whenever he takes the field. But as far as if you're a defense playing them, there's no skill player who you circle and you say, okay, we're going to tilt coverage towards him. We got to put our best cornerback on him. I don't think they have that sort of playmaker, which, is going to be limiting.
Austin Hooper?
Austin Hooper.
We got Hunter Henry back. Dude. I shouldn't say we. And I avoided talking about Drake May just because I know I'm going to talk so much about Drake May in the preseason. There's only so much to talk about. As you mentioned, this show is daily. So that's going to be an interesting challenge. And I'm going to talk so much Drake May that I didn't want to stop.
Austin Hooper is on the NFL All-Star team of desperation streams in fantasy where you're down 2 tight ends and you just got to field someone and you're looking at the waiver wires and they're just giving you Austin Hooper and you just take it because you got nothing else.
You're just hoping 3 for 30. I'm going to go Dolphins. What I'm most intrigued by is McDaniel in September. It used to be that every season, NFL dorks like me would be like, what's Andy Reid cooking up in September? And he still does. He can. But I think some of the idea that the Dolphins are bad at playing in cold weather, which is true. I'm not saying that that's not a factor, is also just the Dolphins are awesome in September because Mike McDaniel provides schematic advantages that other teams aren't ready for and haven't stolen yet. We saw it with the speed and the spacing a couple years ago. We saw it with the cheap motion. And that's partly why they're good is teams have not adjusted and they're so well coached. They're ready to go. And now you add OBJ to the mix and you add the running back group, which is deep and fast. And it's just, I just want to see what he's got going because I kind of think they need a good September. There could be some rocky stuff with the contracts and everything like that. But I expect they will.
Or Galaxy Brain. Mike McDaniel saves it all for December and rolls out fun. like the Dolphins come out. It's week 1. I forgot who they're playing in week 1. I think it's maybe the Chart. It's a good matchup. I think they're in an I formation. There's they're just handing it off to De'Von Achane on first down. Everybody's so confused. People have prepared for high flying offense, all kinds of crazy motions, and then he saves all that or whatever next innovation he has for the end of the season.
That's one way to go. I mean. That would be next level thinking. I do worry about this team if they did that and they started 2-5. This is a highly likely team to, I feel implode in many ways if that happened. I'm high enough on the Dolphins. They're playing the Jags, by the way, week 1. I like that matchup.
I'm with you. I'm excited to see it. I think though what's going to be hard and what is often hard with this team is trying to figure out what stock to take in what we see because this has happened a couple of times. Also, when we think about the Dolphins and their struggles late in the year, a lot of it some of it is just attrition through injuries, no doubt. You saw that with the receivers at the end of last season. But I think something that shows up time and time again is just the lack of investment in the offensive line, and particularly that interior, which they do such a good job of shielding. The quarterback shields it so much. So I guess my question is, okay, did you solve that in any way? Right? And from a personnel standpoint, it doesn't look like they did. But perhaps there is something schematically he can do to further protect what is the weakest position group on the team.
Right. The Dolphins fan would say, well, they're no worse than they were the last 2 years. And they were pretty awesome in September. Offensive line wise, I don't know if they're worse. Well, we'll see.
Did you really have to draft another fast running back? That's all I have to say.
I like it. I like building strength on strength. I think he is going to do fun stuff with that. We'll wrap the AFC East with the Jets. Mine is just, what does Aaron Rodgers look like? I'm going big. I guess I haven't podcasted in a while. It's like I want to hit the big stuff because I feel like there's this idea. Maybe it's I've been listening to too many podcasts and everyone is treating Aaron Rodgers like he's
gonna be great.
Aaron Rodgers from 2018, and I think everyone memory hold he was the worst Aaron Rodgers we've ever seen in 2022. Like PFF had him 17th. I went back and looked. QBR 26th. I went back and looked at QB Index on NFL.com. It was our friend Mark Sessler. He had him 14th for the season. And it's like, that was a thing that happened. And what kind of playing style is he going to have behind this offensive line? We'll see. He's always been a quarterback that's gone up and down, but likes to hold on to the ball. It got him in trouble in the brief time he played last year. And like, what kind of style? Like, is he going to be able to adjust? Kind of like I talked with Alan about getting rid of the ball quicker and maybe not being as fun a quarterback, a little Peyton Manning late career adjustment.
I think it's going to be interesting to see both him and Kirk Cousins, what they look like post Achilles, because it's such a weird injury and there's really not that many examples of starting quarterbacks coming back from that particular injury. And you could talk me into the idea that it won't affect Aaron Rodgers as much because at this point in his career, he's not leaning as much on his mobility and he's got like such a crazy release. He can make throws from compressed pockets. He's still got a strong arm. Sure. I think I just kind of want to see it because I do expect his mobility to be limited. I expect Cousins' mobility to be limited as well. I mean, that is a brutal, brutal injury to come back from at any position. I think quarterback, obviously, you have the benefit of not being on the move all the time. But if he is limited as a mover, does that lead to any adjustments in his play call or pardon me, his style of play? I'm curious to see that as too. I wish I had more belief in his play caller. Right. I have a lot of belief. I like the offensive line they put together. I like the skill players, obviously, when healthy. But I don't like, I guess since so much of the offense will be based on what he is capable of, it's probably good that the coordinator is someone who's just going to ultimately bend to his will. But I don't know if he's going to solve any problems for him.
Right. If I felt like he had a coach that's going to give him a schematic advantage, great. And he believes that's partly why he's there.
Trust me.
And I also don't rule anything out. He is an upper tier all-time great. And sometimes with guys like that, you just can't be shocked if he comes out and balls out. So that being a possibility, which I think it's absolutely there, is what makes it intriguing to me. Or it could be really mediocre because he's it's not just coming off an Achilles, it's a 40-year-old coming off an Achilles.
Yeah. Do you think people are underrating the Hackett factor?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, because like I just think at this point in his career, he could really use a schematic advantage. And It's one of those teams that you worry. And I don't think there's that many. I tend to think coaching gets overrated and there's just more in the middle. Like most teams, it's not like a huge advantage or disadvantage. But they're one of the teams on offense that feels like it could be a disadvantage, and he does not need that going against them.
Yeah. The way
Let's
he
go to the
talks
AFC
about him
North. You're teeing these up, Mina. I gave you homework.
Yeah. Any order or?
Any order you want,
Okay. I know you said you don't want to overrate. We tend to overrate coaches, but I'm starting with the Ravens and I am going with the coaching angle on this one. I just want to see how much the defense feels the loss of Mike McDonald. I think from a talent perspective, while there's definitely some notable departures, Jadeveon Clowney, who was excellent for them, is gone. Patrick Queen is gone. Geno Stone, who was a surprising gem, gone to a division rival, gone. But I think there's still enough elite talent, particularly up the spine of the defense, to where they'll be fine. I like the cornerback they drafted. But we don't really know what to expect from Zach Orr, who's the... we're now old enough to where guys are becoming defensive coordinators who I think of as players, but not even just players like I grew up watching, players when I was in, college or whatever. And that's kind of disturbing in and of itself. But
would you like to know Zach Orr's age, Mina? Because it's kind of shocking. Because he's been a coach for more than a few years here. He's 32 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they chose him, which is important because the whole coaching staff got plundered, right, by the entire NFL. And they wanted Zach Orr to be Mike McDonald's successor, which obviously bodes well for him. But while I think we can assume the defense is going to look pretty similar to how it has looked, a lot of the same tendencies in terms of the simulated pressures and split safety coverages and all of that, and the disguise. I thought McDonald had such a great feel for individual game planning. The Niners game comes to mind in particular. So, when we think of this defense and how good they were against elite offenses, that's going to be really tricky to approximate what he did.
Yeah, we're doing kind of a schematic trend overview that's going to go up Monday with Jordan Rodriguez and Nate Tyson. I just feel like this defense spreading everywhere is one of those trends. There's 4 teams now that are going to be running it, and just how does that affect Baltimore's effectiveness, the tape that they put out last year? And who knows, maybe Zach Orr has a lot of like really great ideas. I'm with you that I tend to trust the Ravens, that they chose him over 2 guys that got jobs as coordinators elsewhere. And so that's big. But they could really use Odafe Owe to show up, and Clowney's not there. I know they've made do without great edge rushing, but that's just one area. But I go through this every year where I think the Ravens are going to be in trouble because it's been quiet, but DeCosta, since he took over, has had so much turnover since he got there. And yet, for the most part, other than games that Lamar Jackson is hurt, like they play like an 11 or 12 win team every year.
This is, to me, one of the underrated things when we think about John Harbaugh and why he's one of the best coaches in the NFL. I know he does a lot, right? But it's a little bit more of like the CEO coach because he's not a play caller, but he's been so good historically at identifying talent amongst coaches. When you think about the hires he's made, the decisions to move on from guys like your Greg Romans, Martindales, and then the people he has chosen to replace them. I thought Monken was fantastic last year. So I have a lot of faith in him as the CEO coach, but a little nervous, just a little bit nervous about that. Okay, I'll go Browns next. I feel like there's only one choice for the Browns. What is Deshaun Watson at this point? I mean, have you gone back and watched any of his games from last year? Do you have thoughts?
Yes.
Because his roster absolutely
especially
slaps.
that last one that Browns fans are always in my mention saying he was so great. Right. And it was like
Ravens game,
none of the balls went more than 6 yards. And Stefanski, to be fair, it's one of the reasons why Jacoby Brissett's numbers were so good for him too. It's like Stefanski, when he's cooking, he cooks. And so that's going to help Deshaun Watson. But he was sub-mediocre and hurt. And it's an injury that still prevented him from practicing fully this offseason to this point. So I'm still leaving room, even though I obviously am not rooting for the man, that he will have a moment again in his NFL career where he's excellent. But he's shown no evidence to say that that's going to happen since he's come back, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, I was not super impressed by the performances last year. I thought he was definitely competent in the Ravens game. I made a couple of throws that stood out to me as being like, okay, that looks like a little bit like old Deshaun Watson, but it's a really small sample size. It's funny you talk about Jacoby Brissett being propped up by this game because when it's Watson, I'm like, propped up. When it's Brissett, I pretend I do not see it. Yeah. He's elite. I guess I'll just wrap by saying, if you take out the quarterback, I think the Browns have the best roster in the division, which is a very, very good division. And that's kind of wild.
I would say the best division, by the way, if I had, if I had to choose one, maybe NFC North, but I'd probably go
close.
This division.
All right. Bengals might be a little bit of a curveball.
Go.
What the hell happened last year on defense with this team?
Yeah.
Dropped from 10th in EPA per play to 25th. There's a ton of really, really ugly metrics, pass defense, explosive plays. I guess you can answer what the hell happened. Their secondary play was pretty atrocious. But this is Big Lou, right? He had been such a darling amongst our cohort, and I'm not blaming him, but this is a pretty dismal performance. And so Joe Burrow's back, and they're immediately back in contention, and they're listed in the top 10 on power rankings. And I think Burrow will, I think the offense is kind of going for a last dance thing with T. Higgins. I think they'll be about the same as they've been. I don't know about the defense, though.
Yeah,
I'm skeptical.
It's one of those things where we have this idea of how good Lou Anarumo is, and that's what I mean about sometimes credit with coaches. Like, of course he is a good coach, but there's such a fine line, especially a defensive play, secondary play, and a team in Cincinnati that really relies on their red zone defense and short yardage defense. They've been so good in situations that, like, if a few things happen, you lose it. But I look at them and, like, I like it. I like their defensive line. They have a strong candidate to bounce back. Logan Wilson and Jermaine Pratt, like, their linebackers really struggled last year, and they're candidates to bounce back. Like, I don't have huge concerns. I'm more concerned that, the Titans looked at Chidobe Awuzie and thought, like, that's a guy that deserves big money coming off that year. So there's a lot of reasons to believe the Bengals are going to be better this year. And to me, this is at worst an average defense.
Yeah, I did like Geno Stone, who I talked about leaving Baltimore. Von Bell he looked a little bit like a player in decline last season,
like
but you bring him back.
So yeah, it's asking a lot if he's not. Maybe he's the third or fourth safety. Yeah,
it's a little bit tricky, but I think you're right. That they'll be closer to average. Certainly better.
I apologize,
than
by
last
the
year.
way. This is your first time on the show. It's just the two of us. I just cut you off there. And I'm like making you host essentially by introducing each team, but I will not make you throw to break. We are overdue to take a break. So we're going to do one more team in the AFC North when we get back from the break, and then we will hit the other two divisions. Back on NFL Daily. Mina, what do you think of us going heavy NFL films?
I like it. It
Just
kind of
gets
got
me in the mood, and it's free, and
going
we have access to 1 million of these songs.
It adds a lot of weight to this July taping.
I know. It's like I need the reps. We need the reps, and I was ready to get back to it. We've been talking about most intriguing storylines for each team.
Yeah.
It's probably going to annoy people who are like OCD about it, but we have one AFC North team left. We had to get that break in. Mina, what do you got?
It didn't annoy me, but I've been reeling over the last 5 minutes.
I was just overdue. I was overdue to take it. I should have done it before.
Okay. Clock management, in my experience, is the hardest part of hosting. I was really the Andy Reid of podcast hosts for like 4 years. It took me that long to get it right. So you're fine. You're getting these reps in. This is training camp for you, really.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. The Steelers. See, again, I'm so discombobulated. I'm like, wait, scroll back up, scroll back down. I don't want to do too much coaching stuff, but
Fine. Do what you want.
I am really intrigued by what an Arthur Smith offense looks like with either Justin Fields or Russell Wilson. And I know that probably I'm being a little bit hipster because the correct answer is just who's going to win this quarterback competition. My suspicion is it'll be Russ at the start of the season, and we'll see what happens. But the reason why I say either or is they're pretty similar quarterbacks in a lot of their tendencies, a lot of their strengths and weaknesses. I think Fields gives you more upside. Russ gives you more consistency. That's not a controversial take. In some ways, I can see it dovetailing with Arthur Smith. We think about the hard play action, throwing deep, whatnot. But in a lot of ways, it kind of doesn't. So I don't know. I like the skill players for his offense. I love this run game. I love what they've done with the offensive line. But I'm curious to see how he accommodates these two quarterbacks.
And he's going to want his quarterback to move to some degree. Russ does look trim. Looks like he's in good shape. Moved better last year, certainly than the year before, which I think helped him in Denver. Yeah, I don't know. I think this team is, I don't know if it's a sleeping giant. And I always worry about the teams that as this offseason goes on, maybe I didn't love them at the very beginning of the offseason. And now I'm like, are the Steelers going to win this division? It wouldn't totally shock me. Quarterbacks, obviously the biggest issue, and the depth of the wide receivers. But even though they are similar in their strengths and their weaknesses, like, one of them's fireworks, and to me, and that's Justin Fields, and he really might not be ready, and he might never be as consistent as you want to be. But one of them just authored one of the greatest, maybe the greatest running seasons by a quarterback ever. It was just a couple of years ago, and he's just adding such an advantage to me in what should be an awesome pulling running game that, like, that alone, I want to see it, but maybe Russ can take advantage of that too.
I would vastly prefer to see that. I want to be clear. Like, I mean, if I'm Arthur Smith, I think about what I did with Marcus Mariota on the ground. And when the Falcons had one of the most dominant rushing attacks in football that season, and I look at what Justin Fields is capable of, and like you said, what the rest of these, the backs and the line, I mean, there's a recipe there for an offense that is really, really annoying for defenses.
Yeah, and I think they can play conservatively because I think the defense is going to be really good. I know you believe you had them on your top 10 defenses, right? Yes.
Yeah.
Let's go to the AFC South. The Texans. I'm just on Diggs' honeymoon watch. Like, I thought about some, it's like run game concepts or D'Amico Ryans' way of like taking average players and making them better. But just as like a guy that does, I do enjoy the drama of it all. The fact that he said more nice things about Josh Allen and the Bills in that opening press conference, and I know this was on Bills fans' radars than ever happened in Buffalo. And it just and he did think it was a relief for him to get out of there, and he was happy. And we see this receivers. I just think it's gonna be like an amazing honeymoon season. Not that I was that worried about like his attitude or anything like that, but I still think he can get open, and I think he's just gonna be a lot. And I think that team's gonna want him to be a lot. And I think the combination of him and Stroud off the field could be fun too, just like press conferences, everything. And we've just seen this with great receivers that first year, and I think he's still good enough to take advantage, is just fun in front of the microphone. It's going to be fun on the field, and he's going to have great players around him that obviously helps him a lot.
What if it's week 6, Nico Collins not only is the leading target getter in this offense, but he is the clear number 1, outpacing Steph 2-1.
I mean, 2-1 is dramatic.
That's dramatic. Okay.
That would be a problem. Then the honeymoon is ending.
Yeah. Then I'm like, how about this press conferences now? How do we see that go? I'm just throwing that out there.
They won't let that happen. And I guess I'm of the camp that Diggs is not cooked.
I don't think he's cooked.
There's a variety of factors, or even that in that much of a decline. And so to me, I expect Nico Collins and Stephon Diggs to be in the same ballpark. But I actually think the coordinator, the quarterback are too emotionally intelligent to ever let that happen. And Diggs is good enough that he wouldn't let that happen either.
Yeah. No, I hear you. I think I just don't want his inclusion and the sort of effort to feed him and make him feel wanted come at the expense of Nico Collins, who I think is really, really good. So that's
if Diggs is as good as I think he still is, it's the best receiver in Tank Dell's healthy. It's the best receiver trio easily, because I'm totally with you on Nico. He's a top 25 guy. I thought that was maybe the best contract of the offseason. It was really 18 per. It's just kind of crazy. Let's go to the Colts. My intriguing storyline. We'll see a little bit in camp. It's kind of how fast is this A.D. Mitchell thing's going to happen. I generally don't try to buy into any offseason hype. If you were making an article, and I used to do this, of like OTA minicamp winners, like he's on that list. Everyone that was there was like, okay, he's ready to go. And it was against air and not really, every concept you want to think you see. But I think in terms of knowing what he was doing and just going up against NFL cornerbacks, everything that we heard from the Colts was very positive. So there's a lot of reason to believe he'll start right away over Alec Pierce. And if he's actually a dude right away, that's not a bad trio either with Downs and Pittman. That's a nice one. It's
not just an average trio or even not bad. If AD gets anywhere close to his ceiling, I think it's excellent, because he would have a force multiplier effect. Everybody falls into the right role. Those 3 players, him, Michael Pittman Jr., and Josh Downs, they all fit really well together, working different parts of the field, very different skill sets, with AD being your prototypical number one who can, he can win deep. He has great hands. He's got the athleticism. It just didn't have like the consistency as a prospect, which is why I think you fell. But if he hits where he's capable of, that is a really, really fun group.
It just felt like it was maturity, maybe more just on the field than anything that was specific off. That like teams it made him fall. Like a lot of receivers got drafted before AD Mitchell, considering how talented he was. But sometimes those guys, when it's their livelihood, and they can often be like, he might be very NFL smart. It sounds like he can pick up concepts and stuff. That has nothing to do with that side of maturity. And if he can do that, like, he's gonna be great.
Like a George Pickens style arc.
Yeah,
potentially.
It's a good comp. My Jaguars pick is about the coach. It's the defensive coordinator, Ryan Nielsen. I listened to the Jags on SI podcast. Used to be Jaguars Report. It's really good. John Shipley is one of the
that guy's good. Yeah, he does a good job.
Team beat reporters out there. He does an awesome job. And look, they've been talking like Nielsen, like he's come to save the day, and he has exciting concepts. And I agree. When you hear him talk, and I think compared to their last defensive coordinator, there is a lot of reason to be excited. Can he add like a big time schematic advantage? Because I still look at the roster and I'm not thrilled. If they're average, like that's okay. And I know some of the numbers weren't bad last year. But I do think Nielsen was like a hipster favorite because he did a lot of cool stuff. And, it depends what numbers you look at. The Falcons overachieved, but some other ones, they really weren't very good. He does fun stuff. He could be a guy that eventually gets, some head coaching love. So it's like, is Ryan Nielsen as good as maybe Jaguars fans and NFL hipsters hope he is?
I think there's a really strong opportunity for him as someone who, if he wants to be a head coach, I'm guessing he does. Because unlike Atlanta, he's got all the talent in the world up front in Jacksonville, but it's one of those teams kind of like Green Bay where like everyone looks at them and they see the talent, but the talent hasn't played up to certainly the draft status. There's a number of guys there outside of Josh Hines Allen, sorry.
Breaking news. Thank you. I'm glad you pointed that out. That just came out this week. Josh Hines Allen. And one of the reasons was he's sick of being the other Josh Allen.
I feel like that's a W for quarterback Josh Allen.
Yes.
You get to keep the name, to be honest. But
I mean, for it to happen after the Josh Hines Allen had almost 20 sacks in the monster contract and really kind of made his name, and he still is giving it up. It's a nice moment.
I think he had family reasons for doing it. But anyways, Josh Allen's great. Outside of Josh Allen, a lot of underperformance on the defensive line. So I think for like Nielsen, if you can be that coach who's like, oh, he came in and he finally got, he found the right way to use Trevon Walker and these linebackers, Devin Lloyd's living up to his draft stats, which, maybe happens anyways with off-ball linebackers and later in their, after their rookie season. Then I think that this could be a unit and a coach that a lot of people are talking about, no doubt.
Yeah, the cornerback position is what worries me. Tyson Campbell's a good player, but after that, they gave Ronald Darby day one free agency money to start at cornerback, which was surprising. They have I think a third round pick. Jarian Jones might be the slot, and so he's gonna have to cook up some stuff. But I'm watching that. Last in the AFC South is the Titans, and it's just the effect of Bill Callahan, one of the great position coaches of all time. Why are you laughing?
Because you were like, oh, we talked too much about coaches. I feel like half of your picks have been coaching.
Did I say that? I don't know. I didn't say we talked too much.
Give too much credit to coaches.
Yes, that is one of my long-standing takes that like there's more coaches in the middle. I'm saying, they're all good. And it's like we look at the results and we just put it all on the coaches and all on the players. It's like, there's variance, there's players, Anyways, Bill Callahan, though, I mean, you got to agree he's a pretty big difference maker.
It's big. I mean, because the offensive line is clearly the weakness of this team. It made the offense at times non-functional last season. They obviously continued to invest in it, draft the first pick. And it would be the thing that holds this offense back, well, aside from Will Levis. But he is a quarterback who we see affected by pressure, so you can use it as a proxy. It's a very talented group of wide receivers. I'm very intrigued by the combination of Levis and Callahan. I'm intrigued by the fact that they seem to believe in Will Levis, and they're betting on him with all the investments.
So does our guy, Nate Tice. I mean, I kind of do too. I see it. Yeah. He is the type of guy I fall in love with because his highs have been pretty exciting. I'm talking about Levis, not Nate Tice. Of course, I'm in love with Nate Tice.
His highs are exciting.
There's kind of a coaching tree too with Bill Callahan right now. His assistant or old assistant from Cleveland is now the Patriots offensive line coach. So they're just hoping that Callahan magic can, because he's installing some of the same concepts Scott Peters can do it. But for real, like an offensive line coach, when Mike Munchak, was one of those guys, is just one of the most valuable uses of money you can possibly have for like the quality that you get out of it. And these players aren't that bad. Like Skoronski, J.C. Latham, and Lloyd Cushenberry, that center to the left side could be pretty good. That could be pretty good.
I think there's nothing better to be from like a coverage standpoint than an offensive line coach who's regarded as a guru, because none of us know what the we're talking about with offensive line play.
But you can see it. You can see it.
The loss of Dante Scarnecchia looms large, or the Mike Munchak effect, or Bill Callahan. Like once these guys become like dudes, Aaron Cromer in Buffalo, we just remember, and then when we see them playing well, because I think there's a little bit of a binary. Did they pass pro hold up? Did it not? Are they getting pushed? Are they not? As opposed to like just technique or whatnot. I will give a lot of credit to a guy who I've heard is good. So.
Like, that's fair. I like you poking at me, but how dare you besmirch the name of Dante Scarnecchia?
I know.
And I don't know. It's only a couple of these coaches, and it's like, the run everywhere he goes, the run game's amazing. So it's just how can you question it? Let's do one more break. It's nice and even after the division. We are going to wrap things up with AFC West, and then just a little something sprinkled extra at the end. Ooh. Just like know when the music swells that someone just broke a tackle and is running into the open field when I hear that. Back on NFL Daily with Mina Kimes, going through the AFC and just what we're intrigued by heading into training camp next week. Texans are showing up. Some rookies are showing up elsewhere early in the week. I think the Ravens might be weirdly the first team that do that. You're going to help me out here, Mina, by picking what you like in the AFC West.
I will start with the defending champs, because sort of picking nits with them when you're looking for areas of concern. I mean, you gotta go with something to be excited about, no doubt. I'm excited to watch their rookie Xavier Worthy. I'm excited to see the offense. But like, as far as like things I'm intrigued by, I want to see how much the loss of L'Jarius Sneed affects this defense. I understand why they moved on. They essentially picked Chris Jones to prioritize that contract. It makes sense. And I understand anyone who has conviction in not only the young players who have gotten some decent run over the last few years, the young corners rather, but also the fact that they have the best defensive coordinator in football is one of their biggest edges and a big reason why they have this dynasty. That said, I object to anyone who doesn't believe L'Jarius Sneed was unbelievable last year. He was an easy all-pro vote for me. I thought he had an amazing season. The way they were able to deploy him against number one wide receivers, the way his ability to press impacted their ability to get pressure and some of the types of pressures they ran. He was very, very important to this defense, and I think they'll be fine. I still think they'll be very, very good, but I'm just, I want to see what it looks like with him gone.
Okay, two responses there. Number one, do you have an all-pro vote? Like a real one?
Yeah.
Damn.
I picked him.
I mean, I'm happy for you. You're my friend. But like, that's like that is my dream. I
Really?
can't get one. I think because I work for the NFL anyways. But I wouldn't have.
They might take away all my offensive line votes after my confession.
Like, I really want that. If anyone, not that anyone is listening, that I would honestly. I'm so into. Like, I want to be a Hall of Fame voter. I would freaking love that, and I think I would be good at. I think I could do it. Been doing this long enough. Come on, give me that vote. But that's really cool. And then my second point is, I'm not downplaying what Sneed did. I think he was better than Charvarius Ward when he left for San Francisco. But I do just have ultimate faith in the system, and that these guys, who was it, Jalen Watson,
Josh
and Joshua Williams were playing in the Super Bowl.
Same
and
initials.
they won the Super Bowl because of their defense. And those guys were out there a lot. I remember it. And they had a guy, Nazay Johnson, I believe, tore his ACL during last year. So he's coming back. Shamari Connor, like it's like they're always just finding guys under the couch and they develop. And so I think they'll be fine, even if he is a big loss.
I think they'll be fine too, but I think you can't underestimate how much easier it is for every other cornerback when you have like a true eraser. And I love Trent McDuffie. I love him as a nickel, personally, on the ball. So, yeah, it's just, I think they'll be very good.
That's why you have the AP vote and I don't.
Okay. I'm regretting ribbing you for the coaching stuff because I do have a couple coach ones here. For the Chargers, I ask, I think this is very key. What does a Jim Harbaugh offense look like in 2024? We haven't seen Jim Harbaugh we're coming into the season. I think correctly, he was lauded as the best coaching hire. His record is undeniable. I think what he did at Michigan, it's not just, he just wins, baby, but like the offense was creative. The defense was very creative too. So I like the Minter hire. I don't expect much from the defense year one, frankly. I could be wrong, but there's just a lot of holes. Offensively though, like 2014 was his last year in San Francisco. That was 10 years ago, And so again, obviously he's been coaching, but I want to see what it looks like. I want to see how him and Gregg Roman build around they obviously decided to invest in the offensive line, prioritizing that over receiver, although I did love the Ladd McConkey draft pick. Everyone's just like ground and pound. I don't know.
Right.
I don't know. He's pretty creative.
And he was at Michigan, and the fact he chose Gregg Roman was a little bit of a curveball of, okay, what are these two going to look like together after when we last saw them together? But I have faith. And I think that is the question. I think that's one of the biggest questions in the entire NFL this year, because I expect it to be creative on the ground and throwing the ball. And I disagree a little bit about Minter just because, man, I guess I just have takes that clash with each other, because it is easier to improve defensively just with better scheme. Like you can take
starting
average
linebackers. Who are their starting linebackers? Who are their starting cornerbacks?
I get it, but we do these previews every year, and we always overrate defense. Well, that's been a little more consistent the last couple of years, but it's just so inconsistent that like good scheme, and Flores was a good example, and Jesse Minter, they have been so good at picking defensive coaches, obviously. Now John Harbaugh and Jim Harbaugh are like fighting over, the same coaching tree, but
that's right.
Good defensive coaches can take average talent or take below average talent and at least make them average. So I could see that happening. And you're right. I think they're coming out with something we don't expect offensively. And I'm really excited as a Herbo fan.
Listen, those 3 games where Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa are both healthy will be electric. So, no pun intended with the Chargers. Okay. The Raiders, other side of the ball. I want to see how much of the defensive improvement we saw in the second half of last season is sustainable. I think there were things from that part of the year. Basically, once they made the coaching change, once Antonio Pierce took over, and the defense from that point on, the season was tremendous. Now they played some bad quarterbacks. There's a few like regression signs, but when I look at the depth chart, they're pretty talented up front, particularly that defensive line now with Christian Wilkins finally. But I actually think some of the role players are pretty good too. Malcolm Kuntz, but Max Crosby's amazing. Linebackers played decently. Corners, you and I talked about Jack Jones. They're just thin. So I don't know how much I believe in the unit, but I think if they're all healthy, there's enough talent there for them to still be feisty.
So yeah, Raiders fans, you can clip that. I don't know how much I believe in the unit at the end of the year, because no one believes in them. This is not a unique take. Like they were not in your top 10 defenses. I don't even know if they were in the
Raiders
honorable
fans were mad.
mentions.
They were mad about that. I put them in my outside looking in category.
Okay, so they were.
Yeah.
I get it though, because we're all trained to think that short a sample size, and like you didn't see schematically anything that was like crazy. They just seem to play together and play harder. And there is something about defense, and I think this was true of Lou Anarumo's Bengals defense going back 4 years. There is something where you can kind of see how hard they play on a week-to-week basis, play-to-play basis that can overcome some things. And that isn't even consistent year to year, but they played their ass off last year. If Antonio Pierce can get them to do it again, a lot of Raiders fans can clip off this podcast and others. Cause I think average is a totally fine outcome for them. I'm surprised you didn't go with, one of the only true quarterback battles, AOC, Gardner Minshew. Let's go.
I'm still holding out hope that they trade for Jacoby. Jacoby Brissett would lead this offense to a top 15
Patriots
finish.
Wouldn't do it. I think he is like he's on the no trade list. Like he's untouchable. They want him to be the sensei for Drake May, and they do not want Bailey Zappi anywhere near a football, for them again. So he's untouchable.
All right. I saved the best for last. Denver Broncos. Not the best. I actually really struggled with this one. I'm sorry, Broncos
we were
fans.
trying to compare the Broncos to like teams outside the NFL. I'll take the hit. I don't care if Broncos fans are right. They're like the Chicago Bulls to me of the NFL. It's just like, why? What?
Well, the thing that I ended up coming up with this actually, it sort of ties to an ongoing question I've had, which is I still don't. I guess the answer is just money. But why did Sean Payton pick this job to come back to the NFL for? It was very confusing to me, and that leads me to my question.
Offered, and he was struggling to get jobs. I think that was it. He was the third choice. They wanted Dan Quinn and was it Harbaugh? Harbaugh and Quinn.
Okay, well, I'm still a believer in his brilliance, which is why I am making this my storyline. What do you got, dude? Because I'm willing to write last year off as like a forced marriage. You clearly hated Russell Wilson, and you called the bumper bowling offense, and he basically was the most conservative offense in the NFL. So you obviously, I don't know, I'm talking to Sean Payton. One assumes he had a hand in picking Bo Nix to be their quarterback. I don't think that means he prefers Bo Nix over Drake May and Jay Daniels and Caleb Williams, obviously. But, I don't think they would have done that if Payton didn't say, yeah, I can work with that. So Sean Payton, again, we have seen you call competent offenses with a variety of quarterbacks. The game, obviously, famous, the Winston, Bridgewater, games, Taysom Hill, whatnot. Can you pull a rabbit out of your hat with this one? Can you build an interesting and efficient offense with Bo Nix? I have some ideas of what I would like that to look like, but
tell me. Do tell.
I landed on this idea pre-draft, which is I actually think, and I'm not comparing them, but I actually think Bo Nix has some similar qualities to Tua. He's got like a super quick release. He can throw over the middle of the field with accuracy. Now, they don't have the skill players that Miami does, but I think you'd want to see an offense that has a very strong downfield RPO component with Bo Nix and put him on the move. He can throw on the move really well. Anyways, that's neither here nor there. But I just want to see Sean Payton. Like, you've heard everybody talking like, come on, like, show us something. Show us some creativity. Show us some moxie, because you're one of the best coaches in NFL history.
Yeah, and they're going to need to score. I just think the defensive talent is hoping to be average, because I think the talent is below average, and the upside is fairly low for that defense. So they're going to have to score. I think he did do a good job coaching last year. Like, you could see it.
Yeah.
Like the weighted DVOA, because I was like, they ended pretty well last year. It was 8th on offense. It was 19th overall. So they had their moments, and like he can still create efficient offense out of not much, but it's not that pleasant to watch. And I just don't know if he has the personnel. I like what you said about Bo Nix. That got me thinking of like comps for him, because I've tried to warm up to it a little. Like, it's not like he throws an unpretty pass. Dude,
that ball comes out lightning fast. It
actually reminds me of a little bit of Teddy, maybe, like who we loved. Like, just a little bit of like, okay, just like an underrated pretty thrower.
But he can
maybe
move.
Maybe it's just the Sean Payton thing. Yeah, and
he can move also.
That's our divisions. Well, we did it nice and quick. Mina, on the NFL Daily feed so far this week, we've been doing after dinner mints, just like something nice to finish out the show. And you used to have a segment at the end of the Mina Kime show featuring Lenny, where you ask questions to me, to everyone, but I'm concerned about me. And Lenny always submitted the last one, and some of them and my stammering responses to them, like, live inside of my brain. Literally, I can remember. I don't remember anything. I have the memory of a goldfish, and I remember some of these questions.
They're rude. That was the
and
bit.
so I'm going
They
to
were
flip it.
rude.
I'm not trying to exact revenge, and they're not all going to be tough questions here, but I'm going to throw a couple questions before we go. This is a fun one because you are quite possibly the preeminent ball knower at the nexus of Ryan Grubbs and Geno Smith appreciation. Like you are there, and they are there together. And you're a UW fan, and obviously appreciate Geno. Just get me excited about this combination, because everything I read and see about Grubbs is really exciting, but I can't say I watched like a ton of UW.
Yeah, well, I'd be sure when you watch some of the prospects, Panic, so Doomsday, you saw some of the reasons why people loved this UW offense so much. It's interesting because schematically, it's not. I don't think he has like a very like clear cut identity. I guess you would describe it as spread offense, pro style, strong RPO component. The funny thing is everyone thinks about it as being like bombs away and just attacking. But I really think that was a lot of that was just a product of the talent. He had, a quarterback who could throw it all over the field and the best group of college receivers in college. He was an offensive line coach, Ryan Grubb, and he will run the ball, and he has a pretty creative run game as well. And you saw that at times at UW when teams seeded the run to them because they were so afraid of UW passing. He was like, all right, great. I'm going to hand the ball off to Dylan Johnson. We're going to run a variety of concepts. But I think, going back to kind of that spread aspect, it's that coupled with a lot of creativity in terms of personnel groupings and formations, ton of motion. And to that extent, I guess it's a little Chiefsy at times. I mean, the Chiefs offense has gone through different iterations, but it's much more like that than, I don't know, the Shanahan tree. It's not like that at all. I'm interested in seeing. So in many ways, that goes really well with Geno, I think, because Geno he can throw it all over the yard too. Unfortunately, the Seahawks offensive line is not comparable to the Huskies offensive line on a relative basis, right? Compared to NFL players versus the Huskies had one of the better offensive lines in football. So I think he's going to have to make some adjustments in that regard to help Geno and help the line. But I'm excited to see it because I think it's we have proof of concept that he knows how to get the ball in the hands of playmakers, and Seattle still has a very good group of playmakers.
Yeah, the thing that you said that excited me the most is like if they can just improve the offensive line, and that is where coaching in the NFL can matter a lot, just to be good enough. That's going to mean everything for him, because when he was protected and the scheme wasn't the issue last year, just wasn't happening for him. When he had time, it's been a sneaky big part of the offseason on Twitter, I feel like.
Yeah, couple days. Every now and then, there's like a day where all of the NFL film nerds just start posting Geno clips. Like there's like a little outbreak, and then it spreads quickly. And that happened
wild.
A few days ago.
I feel like a proud father. Like I don't even need to say anything anymore about Geno. Like it's just out there. It's accepted. What a underrated, incredible quarterback he is. And I can't believe we waited till day 3 to talk about him on this show. All right. Do you feel bad for making me feel bad because you produced a baby that's larger than me?
He's not quite there. You have met him. Can you, what's your scouting report on baby Nino?
Well, I think he's going to be a team player. Great attitude. Big in the hips,
Very big in the hips.
I think like he's going to be tough to move. Nice anchor, possibly an offensive lineman, possibly a tight end, but one that can block. And he's massive,
He's massive. He's an absolute unit.
As your Twitter, profile says, taller than you think. That's true about Mina, but you and Nick are not like
not big people.
Not a tall couple. And yeah, it's impressive.
Thank you. You did the opposite of Lenny's question. Lenny's question was always rude, and that was self-deprecating, which does feel on brand.
Okay. How do you feel? How do you have so many friends? Like, how do you have so many friends? And is it difficult for you that they all have podcasts?
It's been quite the off season of NFL podcast free agency where it's kind of like an NBA hiring where all the coaches surface in new jobs and suddenly there's one guy's out and one guy's in. And listen, I just say yes. You're in a new podcast now? Sure. All right. Come on.
I do think it is your superpower. I think people look at Mina, and this is all true, that you're so good at synthesizing, the numbers and the film and putting it all in really concise ways that, I definitely envy when you're on TV. But I think your superpower is you really do have like so many friends that I think have meaningful relationships with you. I feel like I have one, but and it's impressive. I do ask that, I don't know how you pull that off. It just feels like it'd be so time consuming. You're just texting with everyone.
You're with this new venture, Greg. You are about to deepen a lot of friendships very quickly because you're going to be asking a lot of people to come on the show. And as I texted you when you told me the news, I think I owe you about 25 appearances. So count me in.
I will take you up on that. That is it for today's NFL Daily. Hit the music, Eric. I am really excited about Friday's show, last show of the week. Bill Barnwell coming in. We'll do the same conversation going through the NFC. For Mina Kimes, I'm Gregg Rosenthal. We'll see you next time on NFL Daily.